I think I would say hamster because rhinoceros has that large
The big,
horn, and
yeah.
that's a little scary. And they're known to like charge at people. I think I could maybe distract the hamster with like a head of lettuce and run away. I've never been asked a question like that before, so I'm not sure. But I'll go with hamster.
I think for me, I would RIP either way. So
Yeah, me too.
hey guys, Amanda Smith here with ESPN's Molly McGrath. I'm so excited to talk with you. Thank you for making time for me today.
Thank you so much for your time, Amanda, and thanks for putting yourself out there and doing something like this. I think it's really cool, and it just shows the power of social media and the ability to actually interact with people. It's really awesome, and it's a great part of what we do.
Thank you. And I have to let people know how real you are. Molly literally downloaded Skype today so that we could do this.
That's true. I'm so bad with technology. You think working in TV, I would have this kind of stuff down. I can edit video if I need to, but I don't have Skype. I didn't know, like, I had to ask for Amanda's help for this. So thank you for being patient and for helping me. Yeah, I just downloaded Skype today.
So I think that one of the coolest parts of this journey you've had within your career so far is the fact that when you graduated from college, you took a job as a production assistant at ESPN. Then from there, you worked with the Celtics, you worked with Fox Sports, but in 2016, you're hired again by ESPN, this time as a host and a reporter. What has it been like to kind of watch your career come full circle like that?
It's been amazing. I've talked to a lot of people, and being in the halls at ESPN, seeing a lot of the young production assistants who are hopeful and want to get into television and get into some on-air work. They always ask me, how did you do it? How did you make the leap? Because when you are a production assistant, it feels almost impossible. And what I've told a lot of people is that you have to feel comfortable leaving, knowing that at some point you could come back. It's such a small industry and a small world in television, but a company like ESPN is the best of the best. And to get that experience, you're going to want to leave. You want to get experiences elsewhere. I think there's more mobility at some smaller companies because ESPN is such a big company. So I felt like I had to leave. So I kind of created those opportunities for myself. I was realistic with myself. I knew I needed to leave. So I got really lucky with a job with the Celtics as a web reporter. I think that's a wonderful part of our industry now, is that a lot of young people are able to be in a larger market in a smaller platform. So they're able to be web reporters for large sports teams in big cities. So I got really lucky because that had just started to become really big. And, I kind of kept working, and in the back of my head, I wanted to be able to work towards coming back to ESPN in a completely different role. And I knew it was going to be really hard, but I'm so glad that I stuck with it and that was one of my goals, because right now I'm basically living my dream job, and it's something that I never really expected, but I worked hard towards. So to be able to come back to ESPN in a different role and to be seen kind of differently, not as a PA but as a host and a reporter, and be creative and kind of dictate where I want my career to go, I think it's really cool and really special. And ESPN will always have a special place in my heart because they kind of allowed me to do that.
When you got the opportunity to come back to ESPN, like you said, you always had in the back of your mind. What was that initial feeling like for you?
It was a relief because I'd been working so hard to get to a certain point, and I had a wonderful job with Fox Sports, and I loved my experience there, and I got some amazing opportunities. But there were some changes in the company, and I knew it was time to move on. And I honestly didn't know if ESPN would see me as an on-air person because they had seen me before as a PA. It's like, how can I go from Molly the PA to Molly the host and reporter? So it's all about those relationships and keeping those relationships in every job that you have. And I reached out to some of the people I'd worked with previously at ESPN who knew me as Molly the PA, and I kind of asked them to take a chance on me, and they did. So if it weren't for those relationships that I had, I don't think I would be at ESPN. I wouldn't be in this position. So that's definitely a really big point, is to keep relationships, keep those bridges, because you never know when you're going to work with someone else again.
I feel like a lot of people can probably relate to that feeling of graduating from school or completing a first job, and you're like, okay, what's next? What do I do? How do I get into this industry? How do you think that working as a PA and now working as talent has helped you?
I think it's really good, first of all, to get your foot in the door. I think if you want to work in television and you can't find that dream job, you're not going to find that dream job right away. Get experience, get a job, put your foot in the door, and from there you'll create relationships and you can kind of foster those relationships. You can gain experience and then go from there and build upon that. I think it creates a really solid foundation. And working as a production assistant gave me a lot of wonderful perspective that I think makes me better on the air now. I know I don't really use a prompter anymore, but if I ever use teleprompter or I get scripts printed, I know exactly what that person goes through and the process that they go through to get that stuff to me because I used to do that for people in Sports Center. I know what it's like to cut a highlight, and I know the stresses that people have on them from, production assistants to the camera operators, and just to know kind of the inner workings of what's going on in a studio or even with a live event. I think it gives you good perspective to understand the roles of everyone around you. So that really helped me.
Okay, we're going to play this little game that I made up because I'm the director, producer, and talent of this show. Craziest thing you've had to do while on live TV?
Oh my gosh. We've had a lot of fun this year. So as a sideline reporter, you're able to be creative, but you can only be as creative as your producer lets you be. And my producer is amazing. His name is Kim Belton. He's worked at ESPN for a long time, and he's really great at thinking outside of the box, and he wants to utilize me in fun ways. So I'm constantly working with him on how can we do something different this week? How can we be creative and kind of think outside of the box and do something that's never been done? So he kind of gives me that artistic freedom. So we work together. So I've done a lot of weird stuff this year. At one point, we were at Iowa, and Iowa's offensive coordinator, Brian Ferentz, was talking to us about blocking for the offensive line and how to win that battle at the line of scrimmage. And he used the example of me pushing a car to show that if you have leverage and if you use the right technique, you can win at the line of scrimmage. And Molly, even you could be able to do something like that. You're a smaller person, but you could probably push a car if you use the right leverage. So I did kind of a demonstration and I pushed a car. We had the car in neutral. It was on flat ground. We had someone in the car in case it like rolled away because we didn't want to hurt anyone. But I pushed a car, and that's on my Instagram. One thing that ESPN wants to emphasize to people is sense of place, right? Like if you're a huge fan of, let's say I was at Clemson a couple weeks ago, if you're a huge fan of Clemson, but you live far away and you've never been to a Clemson game, we want to give you a sense of place and let you know what it feels like to be here on the field, to be a part of this community. And part of the local flavor, if you will, has to do with some of the food, especially places like the South. So if we're at Clemson, maybe he would send me some barbecue to the sideline. Like I got sent a baked potato once, and tacos when we were in El Paso, Texas. Just kind of a way to show, okay, this food is unique to this area, and we're trying to like really embrace the place.
Speaking of other universities, craziest student section.
Craziest student section? Oh my gosh. Okay, let me think.
So I'm from selection committee.
I know. So I'm on this like Taco Bell selection committee, which is so funny. And it's such an amazing opportunity that they gave me. But we literally talk on the phone every week and we discuss and argue student sections and which ones deserve to be in our rankings. And I was just at Penn State for the very first time last weekend. They're our number one student section. They have been the past couple weeks. They're insane, especially because their student section's so big and they're really loud. And this is the group of people that camp overnight, when it's freezing out to try to get tickets to go to the game. So their fan section is insane. And I will say, when I was at Clemson, the game felt really big and it was really loud because their fans are really, really loud and they have like a lot of pomp and circumstance and a ton of stuff that happens before the game. So I never get nervous anymore. But when I was on the sidelines for the Clemson game, it felt really big and it felt like, I was a part of something bigger. So they definitely have one of the better ones I've been around too.
Craziest way you've entered a stadium on game day.
You've definitely seen some of the weird stuff I've done. I'd have to say
through your Instagram or something. I don't know.
So the first weird thing I did, I rode on the back of a Harley week 2 into Bill Snyder Family Stadium for a Kansas State game. And so that kind of started this weird movement of like, let's like enter the show in a cool way and give people a feel of being in this like crazy atmosphere. And we've done a lot of noon kickoffs, and to go from college game day to like a boring hello, here's an injury update type of report just didn't feel right. So our crew talked about, like, especially if we're coming from game day, let's do something a little fun. It might feel a little gimmicky, but it gives a sense of place and we'll make the report real. So like that's the first time I did something crazy like that, and it kind of evolved into me doing other weird stuff. Like I rode in on the side of Georgia Tech's car, the Ramblin' Wreck. It's like a big old antique car that they have going to the stadium. I did that once. But I'd have to say the craziest one was at Oklahoma. They have the Boomer Schooner, and it's literally a covered wagon with horses, and it goes into the stadium, and the horses run about 50 yards, and then it does a circle and comes back. And they opened the show with me on the schooner, and we had like a camera up above, a sky cam, and I had no idea how fast this thing was really going to go, to the point where I felt like I couldn't speak because it was like rattling and going so fast. And there was a guy behind me holding onto my shirt in case I fell. He was in charge of grabbing me and not letting me fall like out of the side of this thing. So I've done some weird stuff. That's definitely was the craziest one though.
Craziest weather conditions you've reported in?
I love weird weather because it's what makes football special, right? I would have to say it was my first year at Fox Sports, right? I'm like 24. I hardly know what I'm doing. And I'm sidelining for some NFL games. And at that point in time, Erin Andrews was on one of the top 3 crews for us at Fox Sports, and she had just started doing Dancing with the Stars. So her schedule was crazy. And there was a game in Philadelphia. It was the Lions-Eagles game. And they asked me to fill in for her. So to be, like 24 years old, looking up to someone like Erin and then be told that you're filling in for her for a game was surreal. And to add to that, it was supposed to snow that day. Now, they said it was supposed to snow only about an inch. It ended up snowing like 10 inches, close to a foot that day. And I was in this parka with like a big fuzzy hood, and you could hardly see my face, and the snow was coming down like crazy. And I was measuring the snow in the middle of the field, and it was like one of the wildest things I'd ever experienced. It was my first snow game, one of my first NFL games. It was a crazy experience, but it kind of showed me everything is an opportunity. Every crazy situation, crazy weather, everything is an opportunity for a story as long as you handle it the right way and you kind of keep your head about you. So that was easily the craziest snow game I've ever done, but it was a really cool memory, and that's easily one of my favorite games I've done too.
I want to get to the fan questions that we had for you. Stevie Walker says, what was the biggest risk you had to take to get to be where you are in your career today?
That's a really good question, because you definitely take risks when you decide what kind of jobs to take. I think when I think about it, the biggest risk I took was leaving ESPN the first time, because I had a good job. I was making decent money. I was right out of school. I had all my friends were working at ESPN, and it kind of felt like I was almost in grad school, because it was just a really young, cool environment where everyone was learning so much and we're all kind of in it together. And I really wanted to do some on-air stuff, and ESPN, doesn't really allow their PAs to do that, which is understandable because they hire people to do that. And so I went to one of my managers at the time and I said, I want to be able to do some on-air stuff. And I had gotten a job with a local affiliate, and they'd asked me to do high school football sideline reporting for free. Like, it was nonprofit. I wasn't going to get paid. And I asked ESPN if I could do it, and they said no. So I was planning to leave ESPN to do this unpaid high school football sideline reporter job. And luckily, like 2 weeks later, I found out I got the Celtics job. But at that point, I had started the wheels in motion to leave ESPN, because I knew that I needed to leave to make it on air. So I think that was definitely the biggest risk I took, because I didn't know. I didn't have that job security, and I didn't know if I was making a mistake or not, but I'm really, really glad I took that risk.
David Reed 02 says, I love watching you on ESPN. Who do you look up to in the media biz?
There are a lot of wonderful people, especially at ESPN, that I work with, that I look up to, like Doris Burke is one of the first people that when I met her, I was totally starstruck. I think she's amazing. She works really hard. She takes her job so seriously, but she's also a very kind person. I was, young working for the Boston Celtics, and I asked her for advice. She gave me her real email address. Like, that's rare when someone actually gives you the real info. I'm just this total fangirl, and she gave me her information. So I really look up to her. I think Sam Ponder does a really good job, and she has a tough role in a position that was, only ever occupied by a man before. So I think it's amazing what she's done. And then, outside of ESPN, I love Michelle Tafoya. Like, I think my biggest girl crush is on Michelle Tafoya. I think she's a total pro. She's been able to have longevity in her career, and she goes about things the right way. And you can tell she goes about it with kindness. She's kind to the people that she works with.
Have you been able to meet Michelle Tafoya?
No, I would.
You guys got a link. We got to make this happen.
I know. Maybe some people can help me on Twitter or something to try to meet Michelle Tafoya. She's like my seriously, but I really, really look up to her, and to have a career like hers would be like a dream. Like, that would be the ultimate goal for me, is to have that kind of longevity with my career and to have a role like hers. So I look up to her a ton.
JM Bus 94 says, what 4 FBS teams will make the playoffs?
Oh my goodness. Okay, well,
they're coming at the hard hitters today.
I know, seriously, you guys. So I think it's obvious that Alabama and Clemson kind of stand above everyone else. So I'm definitely going to have Alabama and Clemson as my 1/2. I don't know which one should be number 1. I think that Clemson's actually the team that can beat Alabama. I think they're good enough. I think their quarterback is good enough. And I know that Alabama's quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa, has been like a little bit hobbled lately. So I almost like Clemson even more. So Clemson maybe is my 1. Alabama is my 2. Michigan is definitely number 3 because they've been so dominant. They've always been dominant defensively, but their offense is just different this year. They got a new offensive line coach, and their line is finally coming together, and I think that's been the difference maker for them. And Shea Patterson just kind of fits into what they've been doing. And then number 4 is kind of my wild card. It's interesting because I think that Notre Dame is good enough, but who knows if they could stumble against Syracuse. Mm-hmm. And then if you don't have Notre Dame, it's like, well, then do you have Oklahoma? Their defense is like pretty bad, so I don't think they should be in it. You wonder if Washington State can sneak in. Oh my gosh, that's so hard. I think this weekend will tell us a lot. But maybe just to be a contrarian, and because I'm a Pac-12 person, I'm going to say Washington State. Okay. As the team, just because their offense is so dynamic. I think their defense is good enough. And if that number 4 team is going up against like an Alabama, they're going to need to be able to score. So I'll say Washington State.
Matt Fox 3 would like to know, what is your favorite college football stadium you've been to?
Clemson's Memorial Stadium is really special. Like, going to Clemson feels different. It feels really big. There's so much history around the stadium. And then there's the run down the hill and the rock at the top of the hill. It's just so rich in tradition there, and the fans are crazy. I would have to say that's definitely one of my favorite stadiums I've been to in terms of pure atmosphere and tradition.
Okay, Matt, if you haven't been to Clemson, you got to get over to a game. Molly says so. Thank you so much for doing this. This has been so much fun, and I'm so happy that we got to talk.
I know. Thanks, Amanda. Keep doing what you're doing. I love that you are doing this and reaching out to people and kind of putting yourself out there. It's really cool, and it means a lot that you wanted to talk to me and get to know me. So thanks. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no big deal. Just, I'm glad that I could help you.
You're awesome. Thank you.
You're awesome. Thank you so much, guys. For Molly McGrath, I'm Amanda Smith. We'll see you next time.
Yeah.